Hey everybody, welcome back to our weekly live stream Shadowrun 5th Edition Adventures. We stream our sessions live on Twitch TV, beginning at 9:30 p.m. Central Time every Sunday evening. Afterwards, you can find them uploaded to my YouTube page, as well as a written write-up on my blog, both of which you can find links to here on my profile on Twitch. I'm Eric Watson, your Game Master, and this is my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/gorbash722. You can also follow me on Twitter at RogueWatson. Joining me are a regular cast of Shadowrunners. Chris, playing Ursiv the Troll Shaman, who's not here tonight. Our thoughts are with you, Chris, as you are not here for our excellent recap episode.
Why do you make it sound like he died?
Hey, you don't know that he didn't.
It is California.
I switched it up. Heather, playing Mal to the Human Street Samurai. Hello, Heather.
Hello, dear.
Raymond, playing Saren the Human Decker. Hello, Raymond.
Hello.
Reese, playing Falkirk the Elf Adept. Hello, Reese.
Hello.
For our campaign, we use Roll20.net. For video sharing, we use Google Hangouts. And for broadcasting and streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software. Much of our music, including our intro and outro, is by Perturbator. So this is our epilogue and recap episode, which is kind of a slot that I have always ready to go at the end of each mission, mainly to give me another week to prepare for the next mission, and also a chance just to kind of talk about the adventure and pull back the curtain a little bit between like GM and player. I'm still learning how to do things as GM, and it helps me to get feedback a lot in terms of what works, what didn't work. And especially with this adventure, it'll be interesting because this was a pre-published adventure that I used and modified quite a bit to make it work as the finale of our campaign. So it'll be interesting to look at some of the changes that I made and if things worked and didn't work and all that. And you can, and again, we can talk about some of the avenues you guys didn't go down or the ones you did. And I think it's fun just to kind of pull back that layer, especially because we are going to be putting a official bow on Shadowrun 5th Edition for the time being. This is our finale for both the campaign and Shadowrun that we are playing through right now. We'll actually be moving on to Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition starting, I believe, in 2 weeks. So this will be the end of Shadowrun for the time being. We might come back to it at some point since we all know how to play it now. But I'm excited to be moving on to something different. But for now, let's talk about Splintered State. So this one actually opened, and again, you guys can interrupt me and talk about whatever anytime. This one opened with, I wanted to kind of make it a consequence for not going with, what did I call her? I think she is called Ms. Johnson, that you guys met outside of the mansion at the last mission, who kind of basically gave you the same mission, but to turn in the evidence to her instead of to your original quest giver. You didn't do that, and you kind of ended up blowing her off a little bit, which I thought was funny. And I was reading some of these published adventures, and this one actually started with the hook that, and this is by the way designed for new runners, fresh off the character creator. It is, and the way it hooks all the players together is it's like the usual suspects. Like everybody gets rounded up for this random hijacking of a truck of comlinks, and you all end up meeting each other in prison, like in the holding cell, and get interrogated and all that. You guys know you didn't have anything to do with it, but that's how you all meet. So for my purposes, I was like, well, hell, I can make that work because you've got a law official that might be slightly annoyed with you since you didn't turn in
Who could that be?
the evidence to her. So I made her the arresting officer and had you guys go through the little knight errant precinct area. And then in the published adventure, you guys are basically rescued by kind of a random character. It's like a lawyer / possible future fixer. So I was like, well, that's an easy change. I'll just make Jeremiah Red the one to show up and bail you guys out. And then he actually gives the mission. And the other thing is, you guys end up getting out, and then you get contacted by your fixer to get a comlink back for this one, again, just random client, and it's a comlink that's at this drug dealer's den, which is the motel you guys end up going to anyway. But what I did is I had JT be there as your impetus for going there, because I thought I'm not going to do some kind of random little side mission to get the mission going. I wanted to actually hook things into it. So immediately I had J2. I've just been waiting in the wings since the very first mission. You guys put him in a coma. Wasn't able to talk to him at all. It's still been a big mystery. And I had him suddenly basically wake up during one of y'all's escapades and escape. And then you could track him down to the motel, and that's where things synced up a bit more because the motel was detailed in the adventure. But
You didn't get re-recruited by Red like all the other guys?
yeah, no.
Or the first
Well,
two, I guess?
JT was already a part of Red's group. That was
Yeah.
part of the first one, yeah. But unfortunately, he was dead, which was pre-planned. You were not going to find him alive. I liked the way you guys handled the motel area. I thought that was a fun chance for a little more role-playing action. I had to come up with a lot of things on the fly because the details are very, very broad strokes, and there's a lot of different things you guys can explore. Like looking in all the different, like, damn, Chris and his damn clairvoyance been able to like look in all the different rooms and all this shit. So I'm like, oh crap, I had to come up with things like there's a family in this
yeah.
one, there's a hooker in this one having hot sex, and there's like all these different random scenarios. I'm like practically rolling dice to come up with them. And then, so yeah, and then you guys find the expensive comlink there, which is the major hook of this adventure, is essentially this MacGuffin item, which the part I didn't like is it has this whole big mystery tied to it about this FBI agent and this. It starts off as a murder mystery, and then he uncovers this conspiracy, and almost none of that matters. It's all just topping on the cake, and what matters is you guys have this thing, and other people want thing, and they are willing to kill you for it.
Oh.
And then at the very end, you have a chance to finally sell it to somebody and come out on top of it. But
So it made almost no difference, the information we're finding off of it.
it could have been anything, and it's a shame because I was reading it and I was like, okay, yeah, and I was thinking, okay, I guess you guys can go through with that and you'll like the action stuff for it. And then Chris and you guys were really getting into the story part of it. I know Chris and Heather were kind of enjoying the reading about it, investigating and all this stuff. And I was like, and I'm thinking, well, shit, the whole time I'm thinking, well, crap, this doesn't really matter at all. And I felt bad about not being able to tie anything. I felt really bad when Chris actually called Jeremiah Red and said, hey, you're part of the Orc Underground and all this shit. I should have rolled with that. That was on me. Because I thought that would actually be a brilliant tie-in to have Jeremiah Red suddenly be like, oh, yeah, I'm in this political group, and this was all, an assassination. I backpedaled it when he did that because I didn't know if that would cause some weird plot holes or whatever, because I hadn't even considered that. But I think that actually would have worked out pretty well because Red was an orc. And that would have helped tie things together a little bit. In fact, I think the notes I wrote for myself, I just had that JT basically stumbled upon either Dietrich or the comlink, and I think Zane put the screws on him to make him bomb the bar, is what I retconned furiously when I was transcribing
Which one was
this
Zane?
adventure. Zane was the bad guy at the end who shows up to crash the final.
The guy that put a hole in his chest.
Yes. Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, he showed up with the mage at the end with all the runner guys.
Okay.
And it's a bit of a bummer, and that's part of me trying to string these adventures together. I kind of had an idea of the overarching main campaign I wanted to do, and then that fell through when I was like, all right, I actually want to end Shadowrun now, and how do I end this early? My main idea was actually to have that mage be the main villain, and I was gonna have her be part of this mob family and have ties with Red's gang and all this other kind of more street warfare going on, but
Yeah, but then I shot her too.
I ended up glossing over all of that. And yeah, and I did have her show up with Zane, and just you can recognize yet another NPC at the end.
I can't hear Heather at all, by the way.
Oh, I think your mic's
I'm not surprised.
mic's going through.
I can hear her through your mic, I
Okay,
should say.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, well, my other headphones are dead.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you through here. I was earlier when you first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so at the motel, I also there was not designed to be any kind of conflict in the motel at all. So I actually manufactured one with Sam's gang coming back. So I figured, all right, this is the finale. I'm going to shove as much tie-ins as I can to previous stuff, and hopefully that'll make it a little more interesting. Let's see, where's the... Oh, they already archived the motel? Oh, let's see, there it is. So I had Sam's gang show up there, and the backstory that I had written for myself was that Zane was using Sam's gang as his like hired muscle to try to like either take you guys out or also cover up all his actions, which is why they were there like JT's at one time. And they were here designed to grab the comlink and get to JT. But you guys had gotten there first, and this was kind of just an entirely optional fight, and it was funny that you guys decided to engage, and then for some reason, I rolled really well on everybody, and this ended up being a pretty painful fight compared to a lot of the fights you guys have been in. I
thought we were trying to escape it first.
Yeah, that's partly true, too. You guys were in a weird situation where you guys were kind of one foot out the door, but everybody was also trying to, like, take pot shots. And in doing so, you guys ended up taking quite a bit of damage in this fight.
Yeah.
Until finally you were like, let's just leave, because you guys definitely had the advantage there. Like, you had an exit to yourself you could take and then jet out of there, so... And that was basically all we saw of them. There was no resolution there, because they just kind of left. Which, there was a little bit more information you could have gotten if you had ever been able to actually capture Sam alive somehow, but it's pretty tricky, because most of the time when you take people down, they are, like, unconsciously almost dead down, so that tends to make it hard to capture people.
Yeah, even with a non-lethal weapon like a taser, you seem to have a pretty good shot.
Yes,
I think you
actually downed Sam in that 2 adventures ago when that happened too.
Yeah.
I think that was our first. That was our first session. We got through all of that, and then our second session. Our second section was actually started with the combat here, and then we moved on to the comlink investigation, where you guys basically returned to you guys got to a safe house, which was just a generic apartment building I had in Roll20, and investigated the comlink, got the information. It was a lot of info dump, and you got the call from Dietrich himself to meet him at the zoo. So he'll pay you for the comlink essentially. So you were kind of wondering what to do, and then you got the information of here's what to do next. Which all that part was basically synced pretty much perfectly with the mission. I didn't have to change hardly any of that. The interesting thing here is there are multiple factions that could have attacked you depending on the actions you guys took during this investigation. And it actually depended on which kind of contacts you used and what information you gave them, and that would have led to whomever would have attacked you. And there are a total of 4 different NPC gangs that I built and had waiting in the wings to see which one would attack you. There were basically Ares mobsters, like the guys from Food Fight that we fought. There were Mitsuhama, like, cyborg ninjas that could have attacked.
Nice.
The Knight Errant guys, which did end up attacking. And
because we contacted who?
Because you contacted Dana Oaks, and didn't actually say the information explicitly, but Chris did start asking questions about comlinks and things like that, so I was like, alright, that's enough to to tip her off, and then I had those wheels in motion. And the other one was the Night Hunters from Brackhaven, in case... I think that one is in case you tried calling any of the contacts in the comlink, because Brackhaven was like monitoring it. Which I actually had the Night Hunters show up later in the adventure, as you recall, on your way to the zoo. I had those guys attack at that point, just to make things...
I didn't think about looking at the contact list on the comlink.
Yeah, I didn't. I was thinking about it. Maybe I should remind you, but I feel like if I do that, then that is obviously just telling you guys to do that. So it weirds me out if you have a piece of information you guys forget about. I'm like, well, if I remind them, then they're just going to do it. But and that's part of the adventure. On my point is like, what do you guys know to do, and how do you guys do it, and then I know how to react to it. So
what would have happened if we had just gone in there just completely legally and not taken any weapons or anything.
Into where?
The zoo.
It would have been super painful.
All right.
Well, I'll say this. The thing says... Yeah, so we want to skip ahead to the zoo. So you guys went to the zoo to scout it at first, which at that point I had to... I believe luckily we ended it right there before you went because I didn't have any of the zoo stuff prepped. I didn't think we'd make it that far. In that session 2, you guys made a ton of progress. It actually
I
ended
didn't
with...
realize we were at the zoo yet. Sorry.
No, yeah, well, yeah, and then you guys got attacked by the Knight Errant guys. You guys kicked their ass, by the way. In the book, that was supposed to be the hardest group you could have fought. They were the least they were the least numerous, but each one was is like as tough as you guys. Like they were a strong group, and you guys were just decimating them. It was crazy. I was like, holy crap! There goes all my rolls from the Sam's Gang group.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that ended session 2. Session 3, you went to the zoo. We got into the street battle, which that was an interesting one because I just threw that in there. I was like, all right, there's going to be another. I kind of just throwing in these battles. You guys end up getting followed, and a bunch of stuff could have happened. You guys could have tried to lose them in the streets with like some driving skills, or do some kind of fancy like chase shootout. But instead, you guys just kind of pulled over and had a little fight and end up kicking their ass completely. By like throwing a lightning bolt at the car. And you got back in the car, went on to the zoo, and then this was basically, you guys scouted it out at first, and then we skipped, and then you found like where it's going to be. We looked at where all the technology stuff is, and then you found a spot to do the guns. You got the guns over there. Like you all did the zoo very, very well. I thought it was pretty impressive the way you handled like the prep work, basically.
Yeah, it was all well and good until people showed up.
Yeah, exactly. That's usually the case. Which is all basically... So at this point, the entire zoo is basically as is in the published adventure. I really didn't change much. You guys had your weapons in there. You got in clean. And it is designed where Dietrich is... Which, by the way, Dietrich is suffering from basically a technological malady that gives him multiple personalities. Because he had like he had a certain number of cyber enhancements done, and one of them is basically gave him a sort of virus type thing that gives him all those multiple personalities, different like echoes and memories of people that have been like crossed with AI or something. There's a big little chunk on there, but nowhere does it say I'm supposed to tell the players any information. So, and I thought it was kind of interesting to have you guys guessing like what the hell's going on with this character.
Yeah, we definitely had no idea what was happening with that. And yeah, there's no way to know that he had multiple personalities going into it, and that'd be a virus or anything, and it's tricky to figure out.
I think that was probably one of my favorite parts of the written adventure. Just reading it, is like you guys show up, there's a meet, you guys are already like super cautious and nervous because shit always goes wrong, and now the person that you were trying to meet isn't even like in his right mind, essentially. And then he gets like swiftly murdered, like absolutely executed by literally highly trained Russian cyborg assassins called Chimera. And according to the book, they just show up, they basically murder him, and it basically just says, like, be careful because the PCs, the player characters, might not have, like, very much on them to defend themselves with. So the assassins are probably not going to stick around anyway, that is a military zoo, so they have all those, guards and stuff everywhere. So they were designed to basically... And I think I only had them in there for a solid round before they started. I think they had one round where they were just attacking you guys straight up, and then they retreated and might have, like, shot once or twice while they were pulling back, but...
Yeah, they did a lot of damage.
They did. They were...
Oh,
absolutely.
Done.
There were only 2 of them, but they were scary powerful. There was supposed to be a 3rd one there, the actual sniper. I could have included him, but I'm like, I'm not even going to have him involved in this because that's already insane. And you guys had like horrible positioning, and yeah, this was basically a very deadly trap to go wrong. And it's one thing to spring a trap, but it's one thing also like there's nothing you could have done about it either. It's not like you could have like seen this trap or scouted ahead or anything. I mean, this was just designed to entrap you in there. So I wasn't gonna try to be too harsh or cruel about that situation. It's not like you guys like blundered into it. Basically, like you did it how you were supposed to. Those guys were super powerful stat-wise, though. They were insane. So they jetted out of there. The Basilisks showed up, or the Basilisks were then entered in the combat. I thought that was a nice little bit of role-playing where they could kind of endanger the lives of some of the nearby patrons, and you guys had to be a little more heroic than usual. That was one of the few chances I got to make an actual like monster-type critter. Shadowrun isn't very fun when it comes to critters. They're mostly people.
Yeah. Yeah, so my thought on that fight was, I mean, the Basilisks got out, there are people still around. I could have stopped to help the people, but then I figured the assassins would have shot me in the head the next round, and it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely dangerous while they were still on the board, but they got out of there after doing a bunch of damage. Then you guys dealt with the Basilisk pretty swiftly. I think you got one little paralyzing stare at you, but
Yeah.
it's not that deadly. I mean, you don't know because you haven't been affected by it ever, and we've never done that kind of thing before. But looking at the stats on it, it's not super dangerous. It just like weakens you.
Yeah, I guess if we would have rolled really bad, that paralyzing stare would have.
It could have like stopped
Getting
you
your
in.
core stats.
Yeah,
Messed up is pretty bad.
for a while. Yeah, exactly. And it would have definitely taken you out of that combat too. And then you guys got out of the zoo pretty quickly and easily to lick your wounds, and then we began. I think we ended it actually right there at the cliffhanger where you guys had all like the voicemails and stuff for the comlink. So and that was the third session, and I was realizing like, holy shit, this is a 60-page adventure, and this is going to go down for us in like 4 sessions, a solid like what is that, 1.5, 3, a solid 6 hours or so of adventuring. So, and that was with me adding stuff. Like I added at least 2 combat encounters.
Adventure.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. But a lot of the pages are like paragraphs of some of the NPCs that you guys would never talk to or meet because... And that was a big problem with it, is it had like literally 4 different paths in multiple occasions. Like the first time, depending on who you call for your contacts, and the second time, depending on who you guys decide to call back out of all those 4 people that called you, it had a bunch of different outcomes that could have happened depending on all those choices. And so it had to have all the stat blocks and paragraphs of descriptions for all these different NPCs, even though you're probably only going to see 25% of them. So after looking through all that, which we were already in the adventure at that point when I was like into the end reading all this stuff, and I was like, man, we're not even going to see most of this. So technically it was a 64-page adventure, but there wasn't actually nearly that much content there.
Wow. That's sort of too bad, but it's nice to know that there's different for everyone.
I guess it's cool that it gives you like a lot of options and stuff and freedom, but it creates the problem where me as a GM, I have to do a lot of work and see very little payout relative to me having. And I didn't have to build maps this time, which was nice. I was just gonna roll with it. Like you guys literally had a choice to where to do, and you chose the safe house, which was fine. But I literally was like any other. And I was actually gonna tell you. I didn't think I had a chance to tell you because I already chose the safe house. I was like, any other basically place you've been to, I will just plop that in there, and you guys can have that be your meat. You could have done it at the warehouse, or the restaurant, or a street corner, or what other place? Red's bar, which was still destroyed. Like basically any map I'd made in Roll20, you could have requested that, and I would have rolled with that.
I think that was my very small attempt at trying to
help that process.
Yeah.
Like, we know we've got
Just
this map ready.
Well, that and like, is he really going to throw us in a spot that's already been attacked before? Oh, he is. Okay, well, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that too. I was like, well, are they really going to do the safe house after they already got attacked there? But whatever. Yeah, and then session 4 was all the start of that scene, which was you guys choosing who to sell the comlink to, and then actually setting up that meet, and then having that meet be attacked. Now, this scenario had a bunch of different ways it could have gone down. even on the adventure, it's like here's all the different paths you can do. You can choose, and so the 4 people were the person you did, which was essentially the good guy person, was the person wanting to take Brackhaven down and working with like this underground resistance basically to the governor. They offered the least money, but they were like the good ones to do. Ares and Mitsuhama were basically the same from what I can tell. They're just different people involved, but in terms of their more neutral karma-ish, they both, I think, wanted to see Brackhaven go down, but then they would like just install their own person. And they both offered the same money. Or you could sell to Brackhaven directly, which was Zane. And he offered, by the way, 400,000 straight up. Which you guys never even actually called him back to find out that money. But his was considered the evil option too, because obviously it would be like you're selling it back to this evil, racist, horrible person. And so it was interesting to see what kind of spectrum you guys would fall on. They literally had like kind of good, neutral, and evil options, and the payouts were tied to that. The crazy thing is, there is technically a finale that I didn't use in this adventure. There is an entire other scene at the end where if you guys don't sell to Brackhaven, which you didn't, then the people that you sell it to would then... well, when you guys had gotten the second comlink, basically it would point to... Is it not working?
My computer just effed up. It went crazy, so.
Oh, man. The 2 comlinks together would actually point to the location of the evidence. Instead of me just saying the evidence was there, it would point to a location of the evidence in like Brackhaven Investments building, and the entire last scene, the finale, would be the people you sell it to give you the mission to infiltrate this office building and steal this data in this whole big like heist mission, and they would like give you all this shit to do it. And I'm like, I am so under-equipped to like deal with all that. Like, I don't even know. Like, I mean, it sounded cool from a written perspective. It was like, oh yeah, we're gonna give everybody like helicopters and shit to like rappel down. I was like, yeah, this sounds like a fucking nightmare for my end. Like, holy shit. And plus, it felt weird as a finale because I really did want to like make it about the characters and not necessarily about this stupid ass plot involving, you know, Brackhaven and Dietrich and all those guys. I wanted to bring it back to the characters, and I was like, well, I really want to make Zane my bad guy, that's like the behind-the-scenes bad guy this whole time. And the way I was going to do it is if you had sold it to Zane, and again, I had to have all these ifs because I didn't know what you guys were going to do going to these sessions. If you had sold it to Zane, then I would have him reveal that he was the big bad guy and murder you all, or try to kill you all there. And I was probably going to have some of... I was going to have him, if you guys were going to try to double-cross him or anything, I was going to have him bring out Red, who was, like, beaten and hanging on for life. I was going to have him have captured Red.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
I know. That's when Chris wanted to call Red afterwards. I was like, he's not available. Like, you know, and then afterwards he's like, let's call Red and tell him. I was like, oh shit, I don't even know what Red's doing if he's not captured, so... And I was going to have, like, Lapis and, like, all these other people show up at the end. But instead you sold it to the good guys, so then I was like, well, I'll just have Zane crash that party and he'll attack as the main bad guy in full force. Which, yeah, I mean, how do you think that whole, like, finale went off? I mean, obviously you guys were in the Roll20 map. I assume you expected things to go wrong because things just went wrong at every opportunity, so... I didn't think it was a surprise.
I liked it. I had completely forgotten about the sorceress lady.
Yeah.
The previous mission, and then when that was explained, I was like, "Oh crap, it's her!"
Let's shoot her.
Yeah,
Interestingly, I was gonna have her not actually know that Zane was basically freelancing for Brackhaven, and she would have had a problem with that had you guys actually mentioned. Like Brackhaven or anything about, or basically tried to talk with him a little more, I guess.
Oh wow!
That
So there's
created
potential to like turn them against each other.
Correct.
Sort of.
Yeah, I wanted to create. Yeah, she was not like straight evil. She was just like working for payout, and she would have had definitely a problem with working for Brackhaven. So
Yeah, it seems like all these fights we have, one of us does really bad in a fight, and gets really damaged or goes down.
Which
and then
was
one
you
person
most of this
just
adventure,
has-
I think.
Yeah, it was a lot of bad rolls.
It's been Ursiv like the last two adventures, I think.
And then, one hit from that sniper rifle just almost downs anyone on the.
Yeah. I think Malta took out both the main villainous NPCs in that scenario.
And like the other time with the samurai boss.
Yep. And the last one.
Ursiv just rolled really well and pretty much took him out.
It's a weird thing about Shadowrun. Like, you don't gain any more life. So.
Yeah.
I mean, combat is just super deadly. Like, it's very lethal. It still takes a while because the fact that you're all rolling both times and you have to roll for damage, so all that takes like both time in the real world and like everybody's absorbing damage left and right and all that. But yeah, nobody has very much life. If you start getting hits, like, you're going down. And unfortunately, that makes it hard to do bosses too.
Yes, they seem so epic when they first show up on the scene. They're going to be awesome and hard, and then they're just like, "Oh, I did a lot of damage, but I also took a ton of damage. Now I'm almost dead."
Yeah, they can deal damage, have a good attack, but you really can't do. I mean, you can't give them more life. Like, you can only give them so much of the Constitution or whatever. You can give them a high armor to try to resist it. If you roll bad on that, they're just taking a shit ton of damage. And yeah, that sniper rifle did like 15 damage usually with like minus a bunch of armor, and that's fucking deadly right there. You roll wrong and you're dead.
You actually let me keep that gun whenever you first noticed how bad it was, like, killing all.
Oh, just killing it, yeah. I mean, my one saving grace before this one was you could only usually shoot it once. And then once you got that initiative upgrade, it was fucking over for me. I was like, oh my god, this is killing me left and right. So yeah, Shadowrun seems to have some kind of weird like scaling or maybe challenge problem that is, I don't know, difficult for me to work around in terms of how to do something. Like that Sam's Gang one was a weird, but I think that was part of the scenario, the situation you guys were in. That one ended up being like way deadlier than I thought it would be. And then a lot of these ones throughout the entire campaign have been way easier than I thought they would have been. Although it doesn't take much. You got like really damage from like one like the zoo guys. So I mean, it doesn't take just one errant shot can do a ton of damage to you guys, or one errant grenade.
Yes, exactly. A complete miss by our ally.
Their ally, yeah. I fear I may have overused NPC allies too much in this adventure. I think I hope it didn't take anything away from you guys adventuring or making things like too long and arduous by always like saddling you guys with. I think every adventure practically you guys have had ally NPCs with you, and maybe that's part of the reason why you guys have been generally overcoming most like challenges.
I don't know. I mean, we would have tried. I mean, it's easy to call the NPC or our allies up to get information, but it's also, I like the idea of recurring characters. Each mission, knowing we could count on someone else, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know how much I would want to use like direct combat NPCs that are like as good as you guys, basically, which is what I was doing, especially with like Lapis, like in a previous adventure, and
whatever. She seemed okay.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Crank just completely freaking out and hiding out in the car.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it. I remember it seemed like if we hadn't have tried to calm him down or do something with him, he was going to do something really dumb.
Yeah, that can be fun too. Like NPCs that are almost detrimental to the party, but like you need them along on almost like an escort mission that can be. That's exactly what he was talking about. Actually, he was referencing the Crank from I think 2 missions ago.
Yeah, the dumb driver.
The dumb driver, yeah. Yeah, it's a shame I couldn't bring those guys back. I was like, I think I brought just about everybody else back except for like Crank and Lapis. And I was thinking I might have actually brought them back had Brackhaven wheeled out Red. I thought it would have been too much with the one you were already in, because you had already had the Knight Errant guys there. You were going to sell to them, and then Zane shows up with all his people. I thought that would have been way too much to have him show up and have dragged in like a bloody red, and then have other people. It's like there are so many NPCs here. At some point, I
Yeah.
fear it just takes away from you guys, because every time I roll against myself, I'm very aware of it. Like I'm like, all right, this is every instance of that is taking away from you guys, and I'm already rolling in every single situation. So,
I see.
and that's why, like at one point in that combat, I was like, all right, pretend these two are fighting. I'm not even gonna roll for them, because I was like, I'm not even gonna, you know. And that's a big thing in like DMing 101 is like the players are the stars. Don't like have too many NPCs.
I guess, but I mean, all the other NPCs are really good at coloring the world
Yeah,
and letting us know what can happen, what can't. I don't know. I enjoyed all the characters that you created. So
nice. Yeah, I
I-
think. I mean, all the ones that were reoccurring, those were just original creations. The ones in this one that were the main ones that I used were Tosh, Athik, Dietrich, obviously his multiple personalities, and I guess Zane sort of at the very end. So there wasn't actually a whole lot of new ones that were introduced this time. And out of all the adventures, you guys were probably more a core foursome more than any other adventure, I would say. In terms of at the beginning, going to the motel, and then the zoo, and then on the way to the zoo, and then defending at the safe house. Like you guys were just the four of you the whole time until the very, very end during the final fight, when technically Athik and the other knight errant guys were more or less fighting on your side. But that was really funny the way the grenade did that. By the way, I have no idea if that's actually the proper rules for grenades. The grenade rules are like all the rules atrocious, but I remember that's how I had done a grenade before. Which that was at the end of the very first mission when JT was firing his like grenade launcher from his truck, and I critically failed where his guy had his grenade launcher blow up. That was my first failure using a grenade launcher, and this was the second.
wow. All right.
I should never be given a
But-
grenade launcher.
Yeah, the only 2 grenade launchers in the entire.
And the
Campaign.
entire campaign have been
Yeah.
glorious failures.
Nice. Those are some pretty bad odds. Or pretty good, depending on who
Think
you
so.
are, I guess.
So
At least
yeah,
it affected good and bad guys equally.
yeah. That was funny. It was like the one square it couldn't roll in. It was like the only one that would fuck you guys up. Like, whoops,
Yeah, that was
there
so
it
funny.
is.
It was like 3 is the only one that's gonna do anything to you guys.
Yeah.
Don't roll a 3. Oh, you rolled a 3.
And that's an interesting philosophy, is like hidden versus visible dice rolls, because technically the DMs can do it either way.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of dungeon masters have that screen set up if you're playing a physical table where they're hiding that stuff.
That was exciting in that situation at the time, knowing
Yeah.
that.
There are probably
Certain roll.
situations where I'd want to hide stuff, like
Yes,
especially
for
if
sure.
if you guys are like sneaking and you don't know if something's out there, and then I want to roll to see if it sees you or something. That would probably be a hidden roll. But yeah, in terms of stuff that's visible, like happening right there, like, oh, what number do we need to see? Then I think it's fun to have those like right on the table. But yeah, so I had that actually be the ending, because I just felt like that would be a good ending with like Zane showing up and trying to be the big bad guy, but big bad guys, unfortunately, and that's partly me and partly Shadowrun's systems, just the big villains don't seem to work very well. Yeah, they just I mean, they can do
'Cause you
some
know they're
damage,
the
but they
big
die
villain.
so quick.
Yeah, and you just focus them down first, and after that, you're just left with guys you know how to take care of.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
a pitched battle with the minions or something.
And you guys actually had a very good position in there. I mean, you were basically entrenched in that location. Mauta did the like outside combat, like blow up half the apartment maneuver, which basically killed 2 of them and halfway killed a third. That was my one attempt at like surrounding you guys in this facility, and you guys had prepared for that eventuality. So you guys actually had a great setup for this meet, and then when Zane came, basically just had that one choke point to go in, and you guys were able to basically make fairly short work of them.
I just like to point out with C4, I've seen that go off before at a bomb range. It does not take much to do a ton of damage.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I wasn't gonna like have anybody roll for that or anything. I was like, you know what, this is just one of those things that we've never used before. It's kind of a good
yeah.
idea to like, it didn't have to be C4. You could just line it with any kind of controlled explosive. But I feel like her character would know how to do that, and the situation would warrant it. So I was like, I'm just gonna let this happen without any kind of
Yeah.
rolls or anything.
Oh god, I feel so privileged.
That was a fun situation.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot of stuff. Like anything, that works in like role playing situations. If you're talking with somebody, if you guys do a really good job of it, I might not even ask for like a charisma check or something. You guys can just bypass a lot of checks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was actually our finale. So again, this thing, the book says, hey, if they don't sell the Brackhaven, then have this whole other run be the finale, which is this infiltration of Brackhaven's basically like office building, and you have to go in like the 10th floor and steal this thing, and they would give you all this supplies and money, and I'm just like, I don't know, it just didn't feel. I mean, conceptually it sounded cool, but it didn't feel like it would work as an ending to our campaign. It's
Isn't he
just
the
this-
governor of Seattle?
Yes.
That seems. It sounds
was-
cool, but it seems
I mean,
like
it
going
was.
from 0 to 60 or something.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too. Like, and this is supposed to be like the jumping off point for regular level runners, and you guys were kind of at the apex of street level. Yeah, I mean, it had stats for like when you guys like take off on your helicopters, a dragon was supposed to come attack you. I was just like, I don't have any information. Like, it has a stat block for the dragon, and that's it. I'm like, that's fantastic.
Wow.
Like, one of the office clients just like transforms into like his dragon form and attacks the
I
helicopter.
know
It's
there
like,
are no levels in Shadowrun, but it seems like that should be at a much higher level than what we were.
yeah, and that's true too. I was like, I don't, this sounds like a cool idea for a finale, but that would be like too much. I think you guys, yeah, I agree. I think that would have been too much. So I actually ended up eliminating that. And literally, we started the adventure. I was planning on doing that, and then once we got past like session 1 or 2, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to eliminate that whole thing and just turn the finale into the meat at the end, and I'll make it kind of cool. I have the NPCs there, and then it'll be it. So. Might have been a neat idea, but I think in terms of our ending for the campaign, I kind of like the way it ended up.
Yeah.
So what were y'all's favorite parts of just that adventure, Splintered State?
I like the. I think I like the zoo, like figuring out. Like, I felt like we sort of went over when Chris said we should go scout it out first, and hiding the weapons and stuff like that. I'm sure it was built in and junk, and then meeting that guy, it was like trying to figure out what was happening with him was interesting. I also felt like I was pressed for time. I couldn't think about what was happening since we're doing this like online and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was, I guess he was an entire mystery by himself, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. It's neat from a like weird way, but it's unfortunate because you never really get that resolved at all. It's almost like this random
Right.
quirk that this character. It's a neat random quirk that this character has, but it's not. You don't really get any like follow up on it or anything.
Right, because you sort of figure out what's happening with him, and then he's dead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Whenever you research the second comm link, you get the information that he's like suffering from multiple personalities for some reason, and he's dead. Yeah. Raymond, what do you think?
Which Splintered State.
I didn't think you were.
That wasn't
You weren't
the,
actually here
that
for the
wasn't
first.
mention, right? I know. I kind of missed bits and chunks.
Yeah,
That
you
wasn't
missed
the
you
mansion,
missed
right?
the
That was
first
parents.
session. This was the one that began with you guys in jail, and you had to go find JT's body at the motel. Got the comm link, and then investigated the comm link. Found a bunch of people wanted it. Yeah, and did the whole zoo thing. Yeah.
I think that just the storyline was neat. Just the mystery of it was different from what we had been doing before. Like just trying to investigate and follow one lead after another.
Yeah.
Like not knowing exactly what to do and figuring out how to get a hold of people the interested parties.
I think
Yeah,
that was
felt
a
like
neat.
with the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh.
No, I've talked forever.
I
You go
felt
ahead.
with the mystery, like trying to figure out the mystery is really cool. I feel like uh, other people in this group, other than me, were able to handle that. Like the idea is great to me, but just looking at all that text and what's going on and all these
Yeah.
names, I'm just like, I don't know. My brain can function for about 2 steps, and this
Yeah.
requires 5, and I'm just done.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I do literally mispronounce names by accident and other times on purpose.
I think that's a hilarious
Ever.
quirk, though. That should be like a character quirk. Is like you just instantly forget everyone's name and just mispronounce them at every step. I actually thought that was really
Half
funny.
the time it's a joke. Half the time
Yeah.
it's not.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's good to be able to focus on different people's strengths and their desires in terms of what they want to do in the adventure, and also focus on different character strengths in terms of what their character is good at and if they're able to do things during the adventure. I know I was really bad at setting up decking stuff. I apologize, Raymond, profusely for never having enough stuff. There's a lot of non-information in the book about like what they can do and not do.
Right.
I mean, it's mostly like security cameras and a few locks, and then I guess you're supposed to like shut off people's guns or something. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I read about that, but I was like, I don't know how you're supposed to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it almost
I
seems
know
like it's easier just to shoot people. Like you guys were pretty adept at that.
Right, in the video games, it's just a separate thing to where 1 or 2 people go into.
It's super
Matrix.
weirdly abstracted in the video games. Yeah, they create this whole weird virtual space you walk through, and they basically treat it like this weird combat scenario where you're fighting like programs. But I mean, the cool
Yeah.
thing is they do, in Shadowrun and Dragonfall especially, like they set up a lot of situations where it's like, you know, there's turrets everywhere, or you can like vent gas into places, or open and close doors. Like there are things you can do. The problem is this is a street level campaign, so you guys aren't in like military installations or
Right.
you know those kind of areas. So the things that a decker can do is actually like super limited to like the occasional door and stuff. So that's not
Yeah,
something
those-
I knew going into it. So
Yeah, they don't give deckers nearly enough to do uniquely. In the
and
beginning.
meanwhile, starting at a street level, like a decker, I had to like give Raymond some extra money to buy the weakest deck. Whereas a mage can just get all the spells that they need because it's just based on karma. So it's a super weird balancing issue too at low level. Like for people that have to buy all their shit, they get nothing. But for people like any kind of spellcaster that can just spend karma to get stuff, they're basically just the same. They just have slightly less karma. But
Yeah, I always felt bad at like leaning on Heather for money on anything we did because
Yeah.
you know you have the opportunity in the character creation. I just expect my character to be as passively good as possible, and
yeah, she spent a good chunk of hers on money, so she had all those starting
Yeah.
money resources. So she was able to buy like a super great sniper rifle.
Even then, it was middle of the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Did they have better sniper rifles than that?
Yes.
Oh my
Like,
god.
um,
Unnecessary. So, out of the 3, y'all, we did 4 missions. 4 adventures. Which one was your favorite and why?
What, remind me on 4 of them?
Not with a whimper was the first one, where you guys had the bar bomb go off. You meet Red in the ambulance. The ambulance turns hostile. You guys fight your way out. You have to investigate the bar, and that leads you to jail. I know. And, you know what's weird is we only played 4 missions, but we're talking about 6 months of adventures.
Wow.
We meet once a week. We've been doing this for 6 months. You can believe that.
Wow.
And that one ends at JT's, where you guys try infiltrating and you fight a bunch of drones. The second one begins where you go to JT's to try to pick up the truck and the supplies. You end up fighting the gang. Then you get on the highway, have the big highway chase battle. You go in the tunnels, fight the ghouls, and then you end up at the docks at the end with the big mind control spell. The third one, you get the mission to be the bodyguards at the concert for the singer. That you basically be there at the at the venue, do a whole bunch of stuff before, during, and then the kidnappers show up, you defeat them, and you get the secondary mission to go infiltrate the mansion. And then this one, which hopefully I don't have to recap again.
Right.
I think I like the concert.
Yeah.
That one was nice and open, and
I feel like that one had our... Well, I don't want to say this before you guys, but I feel like that one had our best and worst moments.
On that one, I like the idea that at least I was using my perception to make sure people weren't trying to kill her. I thought that was fun.
At the concert?
Yeah, at the concert. I don't know if that one's my favorite. I like the fact that Ursa's brother showed up. That was fun.
Yeah, tied into the backstory.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, man.
Basically, I'm trying to
the
suss
second
out
one-
like what you guys like.
I like the second one had a lot of combat. I like that part.
Okay.
I
A lot of
thought
like
you guys were really good.
variations on combat.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the combat for me is fun for a while, and then getting a mission that changes, like the concert, where you're just sort of doing random things for a little bit, is also a very nice change of pace and a lot of fun.
Okay.
Same right.
That concert was like 90% basically role-playing stuff too, which that was
Right.
fun to write, and it ended up really, really fun to play out. I thought everybody did a fantastic job with it, and it was super fun. That was probably my favorite single session we've done. Was the whatever one was like the majority of the actual night of the concert.
What was the worst moment in that you're talking about?
You guys stealthily trying to infiltrate the mansion and just being basically completely the getting into the mansion. I thought you guys did a great job. That was really cool, using the kidnap dude and I had to come up with this guy that was going to help you guys. I really liked that idea of you guys in the car infiltrating that. And then from the moment I had to like help you guys get in the garage, where I'm like, just ask for gas or something. And from that moment to the moment you guys decided to just attack and everything, I thought was just bad. Like not like none of us had a fun time, but it just none of that went how I thought it would go at all.
It's like
just-
we stopped having good ideas at a certain point.
Yeah, the stealth part just completely fell apart, and you guys just seemed like... I felt like I failed you guys because you guys felt forced to have to just basically turn this into a giant brawl. And also I had to build these giant maps on the grid, and it ended up being... I guess it was my attempt at a proto, like almost a dungeon with you guys like moving room to room and trying to like suss stuff out, but it ended up just... Alright, we're gonna have this giant battle in the foyer.
yeah, I couldn't even get in because dog.
You had your whole like
Yeah.
side adventure outside, which was kind of hilarious. Yeah, you're like trying to like hack into the car while this super hyena thing's trying to get at you. What was your
Yeah, and
What was
that's
your
when the
favorite?
rules just started going bad.
Which one was your favorite adventure of the 4 we did?
Probably the second one.
The Road Rage.
Yeah.
That's what Reese said.
That one was just, it was more entertaining than anything else. Because of all the different scenario type things, and it was also still very structured, like, okay, you're going to go here. We didn't have to try to think out a way to do things.
It's very odd. You like being railroaded somewhat. All the DM stuff is like, no, don't do that.
But it was more entertaining, and then it was also really entertaining whenever I dropped that bombshell of being former Knight Errant on everybody. They're like, well, what?
That was a funny moment. I remember that.
Oh, yeah,
Right
that
before
part.
getting into the docks, everybody's like, "You're like, I don't know if they should see me." You're like, "Wait, what?"
And Raymond was
I
like
think-
ninjaing over the fence and just, like going crazy.
That was Raymond's one of his earlier attempts at like being completely insane. and then Raymond wanted to kill that guard, have like a smoke break in the docks outside, and everybody's like, "No, don't kill this random person." Just thinking about that makes me laugh.
Yeah, I think that invited the most entropy into the.
The disembodied voice, like
Yeah. And that's something we could bring into character. We'll make our characters next week, but we can talk about if you guys want to have any like secrets from each other or like either secretive goals or flaws or whatever. You still have to make your character sheet normally with all the visible stuff everybody knows about, but if you wanted to have some kind of hidden past or something that could come out, because I thought that actually did make some interesting revelations. But we'll go over that when we do D&D. So
Fine,
Sure.
they're not guns.
no more sniper rifles for you. I'm putting a limit on all sniper rifles.
Give her a longbow with a scope.
No, all longbows will fall apart in her hands instantly. Nobody knows why.
That's just cruel.
It's my revenge. So, yeah, when I started this campaign, I knew I wanted to do a street level. I wanted to use different gangs fighting. I was still going to have Red be your main fixer and faction. Road Rage was just kind of a sequel to that. And then the third one's basically just going to be this complete side mission that really didn't have anything to do with any of the main plot. And in fact, when it suggests making a campaign, it's like, insert just a few random ones in there so it doesn't feel like they're always working towards like this overarching villain, like, ha ha ha, kind of a thing. But then when we got to, I think it was like halfway through the third one, and I realized, hey, I want to kind of end Shadowrun. So I had to come up with this, not come up with it, but I wanted to modify an existing adventure to make it work for our finale. So I retconned a bunch
sort
of
of thing about this for a while.
which kind of thing? Oh,
Just-
ending it?
Yeah, trying to.
I mean, I have to be
least in the
I have to be quite a bit ahead. These do take me quite a while to
Yeah.
build in Roll20, so I have to know like what my next one is going to be. Yeah, like I said, I think I was going to have that mage be the main villain of like a mobster type group, and have it come down to this big like mob war, turf warfare between Red and her gang or mob, whatever. But we skipped ahead to all that, and I just made Zane this big, like, shadowy villain. Surprise! He's the bad guy that's been having this mage under his employ, and had Sam's gang under his employ, which I think I mentioned that briefly while he was dying from a sniper bullet, that he had hired Sam's gang, but I'd have to actually look back at that video and watch that, because that was in the heat of the moment. So this ended up being a slightly disjointed campaign, but hopefully worked out to have some kind of semblance of connection with each other, with itself.
I think the recurring characters threaded everything together pretty well.
Yeah, and that's kind of the main thing. Like, make the characters good, make them memorable, and hopefully the plot will just, kind of come together from there. But the biggest thing, yeah, just try and make, like, fun, memorable NPCs and go from there, which I'll definitely have that be my main takeaway. Any final thoughts you guys have about Shadowrun, or this campaign, or how I've run things, or how you guys ran things with players?
What would you say to us as a
Ooh.
GM?
I'd
Because
say
you had all these stories in your head, and you have a story in your head. We're the stars, and we're here to just screw everything up for you. So,
yeah, I mean, it's tough, especially when you're writing it yourself. Then I definitely want you guys to experience everything. And I realized when I got to like the end of these adventures that I was writing, I was like, God, this is so railroaded, because I want you guys to do. And a big part, I think I mentioned that in the Road Rage one. Like, I had originally planned on having the tunnel be this optional excursion you guys could have taken. But then when I wrote it, I was like, this is so cool. I want you guys to do the tunnel. I was like, how do I make you do that without just having one of the NPCs go, I'm going to the tunnels? I don't know if there's a more eloquent way of doing that, but yeah, I ended up being a little probably too railroady there. What I would say to you guys... Alright, go ahead.
yeah, I'd say... Yeah, because
Let you make your own decisions a little more?
Well, no. I mean, for the most part, I think that was perfectly fine, and I think sometimes we're bumbling around too much. or at least I didn't really know what to do at many points to this campaign. And
Okay.
someone else said something, I was like, "Oh yeah, we could have done that." Okay.
And I think
But yeah, with that part, we took care of the first few bikers perfectly fine. Like, I guess we're on a merry way. It's like, oh no, there are more bikers now.
Yeah.
I was like, well, crap. I guess we do have to pull over. I don't know.
there's a never-ending stream of bikers behind that one. too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, the other issue is I didn't have any way of having to balance that. I didn't know how well you guys would take some of these situations, if you guys would be like in harrowing battles or just wiping the floor with everything. Again, Shadowrun's balance, the system for like challenge rating and all that is really difficult to suss out. And I mean, we hadn't even played that much anyway, so me trying to write my own adventures was probably overambitious for the most part in terms of like balance and also giving you more options of things to do. Although it does feel like you guys responded pretty well to being railroaded when you were.
Yeah.
And I do think, not to talk too much about D&D on the Shadowrun one, but I think that that system will work much better because it's like, here are 4 things you can go and do, and then I give it back to you and you guys decide which one you want to do first. I think that system will work better rather than like, okay, you have to call this contact and then like investigate and figure all this shit to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose in Shadowrun it seems like there's, an infinite way to level up your character and an
Yeah.
infinite way to go about the story and the mission. And
Yeah,
it
it's an
seems-
interesting system. I love the setting. I think it's a really cool setting. When we first talked about doing role-playing again, Shadowrun was the one that instantly came to my mind because I was like, this is such a cool world. It's such a cool idea. It's got the cyberpunk sci-fi, but with all the magical the fantasy races and magic and all that stuff. And then, man, I went through that quick start rule book and I said, okay, I think I can do this. And then I went through the actual handbook, the what do they call the core rule book, and I'm like, holy shit, this is really dense and not super friendly to new players or DMs. And by the time I was in my 3rd adventure, I was like, this is not meshing with me any better than it was like months ago.
Yeah, from what I've heard, I don't know. This is my first time into the role playing thing, but now that we're getting to D&D 5th edition, from what I've seen and heard, the 4th edition was maybe similar to what we're doing now,
Yeah.
as far as its obtuseness on all the roles and rules and things.
Yeah. I'm really excited about doing D&D 5th edition. I think it'll work better for this group, and I think it'll work better for me especially. And I think working with published adventures will be really good for me. I'd like to eventually work my way up to doing my own campaign again, but for our first D&D adventure, we're definitely going to be doing a published adventure, and I might even go into one again after that because I really like the way they're formatted and written, and all the information is there. And the Shadowrun ones had some neat ones. I looked at a bunch. This one just seemed to, I don't know, have the more interesting plot with the like MacGuffin item and y'all are being hunted, and I thought it was a cool way for me to tie in a lot of it would seem to easy and malleable for me to be able to insert a bunch of old NPCs in it, which was kind of neat. So Shadowrun ho. All right, so any more final thoughts on the one thing I would say to you guys, work together. I think we decided to make our characters separately, and you guys were like, meet your characters in game or whatever, and I think that ended up being a horrible decision because you guys were never fully aware of what you all could do, and nor were you aware of your personalities, or it just didn't really work very well. So for D&D, we'll definitely
took a while to figure out
yeah,
what we could do.
and again, some of the things were cool, like having some of the secretive histories. Chris actually had a kind of hidden backstory that he was he only pretended to. Well, I guess that kind of came through when he met the brother, but he pretended to be this like tribal shaman, but he was actually just a street urchin. That was like his secret backstory. So, and we can still do stuff like that when we come to character creation. If you guys have specific ideas, or any that you come up with afterwards and want to talk to me about, that could still be a neat idea we could use, but I definitely feel like making characters together as a group will be way better, and hopefully you guys will feel way more inclined to work as a coordinated team. because that would be absolutely necessary to get through a lot of challenges in D&D, especially the way the stats work in that system. Like, you have everybody like good at something, which I should do a better way of highlighting everybody's strengths at that point too.
Of course, whenever you get everything finished, I get
Now
a
it works.
computer fit.
Okay. Well, if it's one episode to do it with, it's the recap episode. So, so yeah. Any more final thoughts on Shadowrun? On our Shadowrun campaign, which I never actually named the whole campaign. Just each individual mission had something.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the best thing I could say is that I look forward to it every week. So
Nice. Yeah, that's good. So,
good time.
ultimately, the thumbs up. Enjoyed role playing definitely with you guys. I enjoyed being a DM. That was my first, or I guess it's GM in Shadowrun, DM in D&D. I definitely enjoyed it from my point of view. I learned a lot, but I had fun doing the behind the scenes stuff. And the nice thing about Shadowrun, at least, is whenever it's tricky, and I think I made that rule like at some point in the first adventure, like I just wave it away and come up with something. Like, that's been pretty much my policy, and that seemed to work decently well. Like, I did not want to sit there and crack open the rule book and pour over stuff, because that just grinds everything to a halt.
Yeah, I like that rule a lot. I think that was really smart.
Yeah, that'll probably be a rule going forward. I don't think I'll be needing that rule as much, because I think the D&D is a little more intuitive for that system. But altogether, I mean, Shadowrun's a super fun world. There's some neat stuff in it, like attacker and defenders both rolling against each other, risk style. It makes combat take longer, but it is kind of fun to have the defender be active. I mean, there's a lot of neat stuff there, ultimately. I just wish the rules... it needs another edition for me. Like, there needs to be a... It needs its 5th edition of D&D now, which I guess would be its 6th edition, but... I don't know. I feel like it needs its like streamlined version of rules to get me back into it.
And some kind of editor on the rulebook or something.
Yeah, that rulebook is a mess. I miss loot too. I don't really do loot at all, so that'll be nice going back to a loot-driven. I miss loot and monsters. I want to do D&D. Like, fuck it. Like, one thing Shadowrun made me miss was any kind of loot and any kind of like rule monsters. So I'll be going. It'll be fun to go back to that system for a little while. But Shadowrun was pretty fun. I'm glad we all did it together. We're gonna keep doing the role-playing thing. We'll be switching over to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And as a programming note, I will actually be live streaming on YouTube instead of Twitch. So this will be my very last role-playing Twitch broadcast, because YouTube has gotten 90% more views in terms of the later recordings, and I think it's just kind of the more appropriate audience. Like, Twitch is still very much a video game thing, and YouTube is now, just recently, by the way, to date this video, has set up like their gaming.youtube.com, which is made for streaming. So that'll be a little better. So we'll be streaming via my YouTube channel in the future. In 2 weeks, next week we'll be making our characters, and that'll be fun. I'll be ready to go, man. I've got all my shit together. It'll be very nice. So, all right. Well, thank you to let's see, Heather's right here. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Chris, wherever you are. Oh, that got loud quick. Raymond and Reese, I am Eric, and this was our recap for Shadowrun Splintered State and our campaign, as well as Shadowrun 5th Edition in general. We'll be back in 2 weeks to do... Are you Des Bryant? To do Dungeons and Dragons
I'm always Des Bryant.
Edition. Thanks, guys. See you next time.